We've got no captain and no first officer to replace him.
Yeah, we do.
This week on At the Movies, summer movie season gets off to a quick start. We've got the exclusive early review of J.J. Abrams' Star Trek.
But you will have your revenge.
I'm coming for blood.
Hugh Jackman takes his claws out in X-Men Origins: Wolverine.
I'll be on my best behavior.
Really?
Yes.
Matthew McConaughey is the king of romantic comedies. Will the ghost...
Beyonce Knowles goes head-to-head with a woman who is obsessed.
Putting together a special team. With special privileges. Join me, but you will have your revenge.
I want new ones.
And what do you want him to say?
Wolverine.
A comic book icon seeks revenge in X-Men Origins: Wolverine. I'm Ben Lyons from E! Entertainment.
And I'm Ben Mankiewicz from Turner Classic Movies. How do you keep a long-running film franchise fresh? Well, you go back to the beginning. It's what our first movie has done. X-Men Origins: Wolverine. Hugh Jackman sheds his Oscar tap shoes for those familiar claws, playing Wolverine for the 4th time. But in this installment, we get the backstory.
We're going to make you indestructible. But first, we're going to have to destroy you. Then you will be able to withstand virtually anything. It's called adamantium. You're going to have to embrace the other side. Become the animal.
In the previous films, we know Wolverine is essentially ageless. Here we learn he was born before the Civil War, a sickly child who didn't know his own mutant gifts until an adolescent act of violent revenge forces him from the house with his older brother, who we learn is also a mutant, played by Liev Schreiber. They fight side by side in the Civil War, in World Wars I and II, and then in Vietnam, before a betrayal makes them mortal enemies.
Why? You don't call, you don't write. How else am I supposed to get your attention?
Wolverine's backstory was good stuff, but after the falling out with Schreiber, the story loses its center and it gets wobbly, losing credibility. After that medical procedure we showed you makes Wolverine almost indestructible, the Army officer in charge, played by Danny Houston, wants him dead. He tries twice before announcing, out of the blue, that he has a special gun that will do the job. Well, then use it right away.
Where's Victor?
Come back to base. I'll explain everything. We'll take Victor down together.
Wrong answer. After I kill Victor, I'm coming for you. You honor the animal, Colonel. You got it.
An hour in, it really rushes fairly incoherently to the end. I am prepared to suspend disbelief often in a fantasy film like this, but not all the time. Skip it.
Ben, what I love about the original X-Men franchise is that these are mutants who are not clearly defined by good and evil. There's some ambiguity to it. And they're also amongst us in the real world. They're side by side with human beings. Here, there's really none of that. It feels so isolated in its own universe, and I think that's really lost from the spirit of the X-Men franchise.
You know, those first two that you talked about, the first two X-Men, they were really character-driven movies, and I like the moral ambiguity in them. These last two, the previous one directed by Brett Ratner and this one directed by Gavin Hood, again, we've lost that sort of sense of character.
So many of the supporting characters here are simply introduced to see if audiences will want to see another spin-off movie with Ryan Reynolds' character. Deadpool, he's in one scene, and Gambit, who's a really cool character from the X-Men franchise. They throw him in here, not for the sake of the story in this movie, but just to introduce them to audiences to see if there'll be a spin-off, and it felt forced.
I did like his romance with Lynn Collins, and that sort of provides the motivation for his revenge. I'm a little over revenge as a theme for a lead character, but of course, look, a lot of women are going to go to this movie and they're going to like it because, I'll be honest, I'm as heterosexual as the next guy, but when Hugh Jackman walks out there without his shirt on in the Canadian Rockies, you think, okay, that's a sexy guy.
You know, amazing to think we last saw him host the Oscars, and here he is now for the 4th time as Logan Wolverine, and he can do both, musical theater and huge action movies. So to his credit, he's definitely a true performer.
He did a nice job, but overall, not what I was looking for at all.
Definitely disappointed by this. I'm going to say skip it. Next movie, no stranger to the contrived romantic comedy, Matthew McConaughey stars as Connor Meade in Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. Connor is a celebrity and fashion photographer who has lived his life dating every gorgeous woman that has crossed his path. When his younger brother, played by Breckin Meyer, gets engaged, he reluctantly attends the wedding. To his surprise, his one true love, childhood friend Jenny, played by Jennifer Garner, is the maid of honor.
You know, people were taking bets on whether or not you'd even show up.
I missed my kid brother's wedding?
See, that's what I said. The whole thing you do is just to get insecure women to sleep with you. Deep down, you're a big sweetheart.
Oh, look who's got me pegged.
Ghosts of Girlfriends Past is really a romantic comedy version of A Christmas Carol. Connor is visited by his dead uncle, played by Michael Douglas, plus the ghosts of girlfriends past, present, and future.
Hi, Connor.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm like the ghost of girlfriends past. I tickled a little bit.
They take him on a journey through his past relationship mistakes and how they could affect his future. It's a tired premise with some even weaker gags.
Oh my God, the gate. Did you see what happened?
Here we go.
Let's face it, there's nothing inventive, creative, or different here. Douglas channeling the great producer Robert Evans and Emma Stone as the spunky, brace-faced ghost had me mildly amused, but it wasn't enough to keep me really interested, especially since I didn't feel any of the chemistry between McConaughey and Garner. You can skip Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. Really silly movie.
No chemistry at all between them. We're supposed to believe that a woman of Jennifer Garner's intellect and professionalism and class is going to find anything attractive about Matthew McConaughey other than the fact that he's obviously physically attractive.
There's nothing likable about his character at all. He slept with all the bridesmaids. He hits on the bride-to-be's mother. He's just really a scummy guy, which doesn't come off as funny even in this movie.
Bridesmaids, sort of very stereotypically trashy. I think you're right, Michael Douglas, Emma Stone, of the group, that they were the best.
Sure,
but
had
there's
their
very
moments,
little,
but yeah.
very little here. Very
Too
typical
few.
Matthew McConaughey
Totally,
movie.
and if you look back at some of his previous romantic comedies, it's right up there with Fool's Gold and Failure to Launch as being pretty lousy. I mean, I enjoyed How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days a little bit more than those films, but why he keeps doing these movies, I don't know.
This movie, I think, really did the impossible, is that it makes Failure to Launch look like The Thin Man. It is neither romantic nor funny, which I think are really key elements of a romantic comedy.
Well said, Nick.
If you haven't guessed by now, I think you should skip Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. Coming up next, one of the most anticipated movies of the year. We've got the early review of Star Trek.
And later, Beyonce Knowles goes head-to-head with her husband Stalker in Obsessed.
You will always be a child of two worlds and fully capable of deciding your own destiny. The question you face is, which path will you choose?
Next up is the highly anticipated Star Trek. It opens next week, so this is an early review. The 11th Star Trek movie marks the first for writer, producer, and director J.J. Abrams, who with the help of a young and relatively unknown cast, attempts to redefine the popular science fiction franchise. Here we get the origin story. It begins with the birth of Captain James Tiberius Kirk, the character made famous by William Shatner. At a crossroads in his life, a beaten-up and grown-up Kirk, played pitch perfectly by Chris Pine, is challenged to make something of his life by the current captain of the Enterprise, played by Bruce Greenwood.
Your father was captain of a starship for 12 minutes. He saved 800 lives, including your mother's and yours. I dare you to do better.
Pine brings something of his own to the iconic Kirk, a confident swagger and a self-assured enthusiasm for the role, as does Zachary Quinto, who plays Mr. Spock.
We are traveling at warp speed. How did you manage to beam aboard this ship?
You're the genius, you figure it out.
As acting captain of this vessel, I order you to answer the question.
Well, I'm not telling, acting captain.
They're forced to unite to stop the evil Nero, a Romulan warrior menacingly played by a really unrecognizable Eric Bana. On a quest for revenge, he first attempts to destroy planet Vulcan, Spock's home, and then planet Earth. With an accessible storyline for movie fans not familiar with the world of the franchise, Abrams is able to capture the spirit of Star Trek. Add to the mix first-rate special effects, and what's left is an event movie.
Remember, the Enterprise won't be able to beam you back until you turn off that drill.
Good luck.
Star Trek has moments of great drama, action, and comedy, all while delivering an intense science fiction experience. I was very pleased with the latest Star Trek, and I had high hopes for it. You should see it.
You mentioned the special effects. I actually didn't love the special effects, and I thought the movie is being marketed in a sort of puzzling way, because you look at those trailers on television and you think this is really a special effects-driven summer popcorn movie.
I think they're disappointing. They don't just dominate the story and the characters at play. I think they complement them more than anything.
Yeah, I certainly wasn't impressed with them as you were. Let's put it like that. But that said, I think this is a totally character-driven film with 5 exceptionally cast people, the sort of core members of the Enterprise. I thought they were all terrific, led by Chris Pine. And I think the story really, really works. And I'm very pleased that it's not special effects driven.
Well, you really see why Star Trek is so special to so many people. You and I are not self-proclaimed Trekkies or Trekkers, but you really understand the mythology of the franchise from this movie. And I think J.J. Abrams walks the line gracefully between honoring the original series and introducing the pop culture movie masses to these characters.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very accessible for people who are not big Star Trek fans, no question. I do want to talk about Chris Pine in particular, because when you play somebody like Captain Kirk, who's been played by William Shatner, so easy to fall into the trap of mimicking Shatner, but he does capture sort of the essence of Kirk, a guy who is driven, who is ambitious, who is funny, who is egotistical. He makes Kirk his own,
And
I think,
same
very
goes for
effectively.
Quinto as Spock, and it's interesting, he has lots of scenes opposite the original Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, who is not relegated to a vanity cameo here, but is actually an integral part of the story.
Yeah, I thought it was great to see Nimoy. I thought Quinto was good. As I said, I thought they were all good. I think you should see Star Trek. To get immediate updates on future early reviews, you can follow us on Twitter. Just go to twitter.com/@themoviestv.
After the break, Beyonce pulls no punches in Obsessed.
Go where, Sharon?
To hell!
Why didn't you call me back today?
We had a temper. She didn't leave a number.
Is she pretty?
Pretty plain.
It is such a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Charles.
Hi. You said she was plain. That girl may be a lot of things, but she ain't plain.
It's been 22 years since Glenn Close stalked Michael Douglas in Fatal Attraction. And though the makers of Obsessed won't call this a remake, it is essentially the same story. The stars here are Idris Elba, Ali Larter, and playing the dutiful wife back home, Beyonce Knowles. Elba plays a successful financial planner. Larter, playing a temp at his firm, sets her temptress sights on him. It's almost as if she's obsessed with him. But despite a modicum of tension, each scene still feels like a building block toward a predetermined end.
Derek!
Lisa?
What are you doing in my house? Huh? Sharon!
Oh, Derek, I'm gonna call you back.
I honestly thought the whole first 85 minutes were scripted to allow Beyonce to deliver that line. And it got a reaction in the theater. But it's all a cheap, manipulative, and formulaic ruse. Elba and Larter are actually pretty good. Beyonce, though, strikes one note throughout. Obsessed opened last weekend, and it did surprisingly well, taking the #1 slot at the box office. It's interesting to note the studio refused to screen it for Ben and I in time to tape last weekend's show. Now we know why you should skip Obsessed.
Ben, it's always problematic when a thriller builds to that climactic moment in order to make the audience laugh. Something's wrong here, and that's what happens with that final girl fight. Laughably awful. You want to think that this movie is so bad that it's good, and it ends up just being bad. A silly, contrived film.
The characters make some really, really puzzling choices. Idris Elba is called by Beyonce Knowles, and he can tell she's in a fight with Ali Larter, a fight that could well end in her death. And Idris Elba hangs up the phone and specifically dials the detective they talk to, as if he's going to hold for her to come to the phone. 911, your wife may die.
So many loopholes in the movie. They begin to add up after a while. You mentioned that Beyonce, who's also an executive producer on this, is the one who plays it at one note throughout. I think the same is true for Elba and Lauder. Ali Lauder looks fantastic. She's no Rebecca De Mornay in The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, a far scarier movie. And Idris Elba is far better than the material. Here he plays it really flat, doesn't add anything to the film at all.
He's a terrific actor. Needs to pick better material.
If you haven't wasted your money already, please don't. Skip Obsessed. Originally scheduled for a 2D release, the animated Battle for Terra has been revamped and is now ready for the world to see in 3D. Set in the future, Terra is a cautionary tale about an alien planet targeted for invasion by the last remaining human beings in the universe, looking to call a new planet home after Earth's destruction.
My plan, Mr. President, is the only way to salvage our species. We are dying. We are the last relics of humanity. The future depends on us.
That's Brian Cox voicing General Hemmer, determined to annihilate the peaceful aliens of Terra. Their only hope for survival lies with a young girl named Mala, voiced by Evan Rachel Wood, on a quest to rescue her kidnapped father. She strikes a forbidden relationship with Lieutenant Jim Stanton, voiced by Luke Wilson. The human and the alien are each trying to save their respective races before it's too late.
Hold tight, okay? This could be a bumpy ride.
Why are they doing this?
Fire at that ship!
Time to go? Return fire!
It's a trap!
Whose side are you on? Us or them?
Terra tackles some ambitious, adult-minded themes, such as civic duty, free will, and the future of humanity, yet stumbles mightily, largely in part due to its lackluster animation. And the computer-generated citizens of Terra all look very similar and are saddled with uninspired voiceover work from the star-studded cast. I don't think younger or older audiences will be interested, so you can skip Battle for Terra.
Yeah, I actually had trouble following which Terrian was which, and I guess that is simply the animation not popping off the screen. It did not look as good as many of the recent animated movies that we've had in the earlier part of this year or last year.
We get spoiled by monsters and aliens and bolts, and there's really something to having a rich and colorful palette for which to tell a story. And here it doesn't have that, so it's immediately off to a bad start.
Yeah, there's a moment early on when the humans come to Terra, and the Terrians are clearly believers in their own gods, and they think that this is a religious experience, and they're shouting, "Take me, take me," and of course, in the end, they're killed. And I thought, oh, this is going to be sort of a scathing analysis of religious belief, but then that really went nowhere at all.
No, it resorts to trying to be a commercial movie and have these interesting characters that don't really flesh out some of those more adult-minded themes.
Yeah, you know, Ben, I wanted to like this movie, but in the end, I think you need to skip Battle for Terra.
Coming up next, my #1 movie of 2008, with more than 3 hours of extra features.
Plus, Clint Eastwood in one of my all-time favorite war films. It's all in our DVD Out Now segment.
I'm an American. I don't even know why the hell I'm here.
I'll send you a postcard.
Write me a postcard from everywhere.
Time to take a look at DVDs out now. My favorite film of 2008, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, is my pick this week. This Criterion Collection special edition features 3 hours of bonus features, focusing on the cutting edge and creative techniques used by director David Fincher and his special effects team to span 60 years in the lives of both Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett. The way in which they constructed Pitt's facial expressions to match them to the bodies of smaller actors working with essentially giant blue socks on their heads worked seamlessly, brilliantly in fact, and will be what the movie is most remembered for.
My DVD pick comes from the Turner Classic Movies Greatest Classic Films collection. 4 World War II films are included, but one in particular always gets my attention. Clint Eastwood and Richard Burton in Where Eagles Dare. Eastwood playing a strong, silent American officer on a British mission to infiltrate a Nazi castle in the Bavarian Alps, nods, grins, and scowls his way to making this one of my favorite World War II thrillers. It all leads to a memorable final scene without a shot being fired. Burton, with Eastwood watching silently, of course, offers a Nazi spy a choice: death or public humiliation. It's a wonderfully climactic moment in an underrated film.
So both the TCM Greatest Classic Films collection, World War II, Battlefront Europe, and The Curious Case of Benjamin Button will be in stores this Tuesday.
Want to know what you can't miss this weekend? Stay tuned for my 3 to see, which includes 3 Oscar winners, a heavyweight champ, and most importantly, baby ducks.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by...
Roundup Extended Control does 2 jobs at once. 1. Kills weeds to the root. 2. Forms a barrier, preventing new ones for up to 4 months. Roundup Extended Control.
Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago. Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience. Located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
All right, let's recap the movies on this week's show. We both say you can skip X-Men, Origins, Wolverine, and you can also skip Ghosts of Girlfriends Past. We both say you should see Star Trek when it opens next week, and we agree that you can skip Obsessed and you can skip Battle for Terra. Tough week at the movies, buddy.
Yeah, still love going to the movies, love talking about them, but this was a rough week, no question. But thankfully, there is still some good stuff out in theaters. My 3 to see this week starts with the Russell Crowe, Ben Affleck, Helen Mirren political journalism drama, State of Play. It's a rather realistic and thoughtful examination of the ethical line print journalists walk every day in doing work we seem eager to dismiss and seldom praise. At number 2, James Toback's documentary, Tyson. The only subject interviewed is Mike Tyson himself, but this is a very well-rounded assessment of the former champ and convicted rapist. Believe whatever you like about Tyson, but he is a remarkably introspective, thoughtful, and candid subject. And at number 1, the Disney nature film Earth. This is a wildlife documentary on steroids. It's really hard to imagine seeing a more visually arresting film this year, and it also includes moments of really creative storytelling. This, I don't say often, I was sorry when Earth was over.
All right, well, that's it for now. Remember, we're always online. Now you can follow us on Twitter. Go to @themoviestv.com to find out how.
We will leave you with a look at what's coming up over the next few weeks. And until next week, as always, we will be at the movies.
You're talking about the moment of creation.
Where are you?
I don't know.
Why is the runway covered in whipped cream?
Strawberries are coming. Try them with French toast, crepes, and pancakes during IHOP Strawberry Festival. IHOP. Come hungry, leave happy.
Renewin, the only intensive release bilayer tablet for joint care and energy. Layer 1 works to improve joint comfort and mobility. Layer 2 helps boost your energy. Renewin, healthy joints, active lifestyle.
Millions of pet owners trust 1-800-PET-MEDS for fast service, free shipping, and big savings. Call now or order online from 1-800-PET-MEDS, America's largest pet pharmacy.
Clinically proven Mederma lets you do something about your scar so you can move on with your life and leave your scar behind. Mederma.